All right, let's talk about a tool that's about to feel like your new testing co-pilot, Cypress Studio AI. And this isn't just, some minor update. It's a completely new way to think about writing your tests. The AI basically does all the heavy lifting of figuring out what to check so you can focus on what actually matters.
You know that feeling, right? You're writing a test, you click a button or fill out a form, and something on the screen changes. And then you have to stop and think, okay, what's the most important thing to actually assert here? Is it the text that popped up? Is that little green success message visible? That moment, that little bit of guesswork, that's exactly what we're going to solve today.
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll talk about what I'm calling the assertion guessing game. Then we'll properly meet your AI copilot and get it up and running. After that, we'll see how it actually creates smarter recordings and ultimately better tests. And finally, we'll dig into why this is basically your new testing superpower. Okay, so let's set the stage. A lot of you are probably already familiar with Cypress Studio. It's been a fantastic tool for a while, but it had one key limitation that honestly still left a lot of the work on your shoulders. So the original Studio is great at what it does. It records your clicks, your typing, and your selections, and turns all of that into Cypress commands. It gives you the whole skeleton of your test, which is awesome. But after those interactions, you were kind of on your own. You had to go back into the code and manually write every single assertion. And this table here, it just lays it out so clearly. Both versions let you record interactions, and of course you can still add assertions manually, but Studio AI, which does need to be connected to Cypress Cloud, brings in two absolute game changers: AI-powered assertion recommendations and the ability to review the DOM snapshots that it used to make those recommendations. This is the leap from just being a recorder to becoming a true copilot. All right, so let's properly meet this new copilot. Getting it all set up is incredibly simple, and once you do, it just slides right into the workflow you're already used to. There are really just a couple of things you need. First, because all the AI magic happens in the cloud, you've got to connect your project to a Cypress Cloud account. And hey, even free accounts can give this a spin. Second, you just need source maps enabled. And for most of us, that's already the default in our Cypress projects anyway, so it's probably already done. Once that's ready, you just open Studio and start recording like you normally would. Okay, now for the fun part. Let's see how this all comes together, because this is where it gets really cool. We're going to look at how Studio AI works in real time while you're actually interacting with your application. So as you click around your app, Studio AI is just quietly working in the background. It's not just recording what you do, it's actively observing the document object model, the DOM, and it's watching for any changes that happen between every single one of your interactions. So how does it know what changed? Well, that's pretty clever. It takes a before snapshot of the DOM right before you click and an after snapshot right after you click. Then it compares the two to find exactly what appeared, what disappeared, or what got modified. That comparison, that's its secret sauce. And based on that simple before and after comparison, the AI generates recommended assertions and shows them to you right there in the Studio panel. And here's the key. You are still in complete control. You can look at every suggestion, accept the ones you like, and just reject the ones you don't. It's really that simple. And the range of what it can assert is seriously impressive. It's not just simple stuff. It can check for visibility, changes in text, the number of items in a list, or the values in a form. It even checks for changes in element attributes, like, say, a button's disabled attribute being removed after you fill out a form correctly. That's one of those super subtle but critical changes that's so easy to forget to test for yourself. On top of all that, the AI is also really smart about how it finds elements. It doesn't just grab the first messy selector it can find, it actually uses a priority strategy. It looks for those really robust selectors first, like data CY or data test ID, before it falls back to things like classes or IDs. This makes the tests it generates way more reliable and a lot less likely to break down the line. So, we've seen what it is, we've seen how it works. Now let's get to the most important question. What does this actually mean for you? How does this become your new superpower? The benefits here are pretty huge. First off, you're going to write tests much, much faster. You'll reduce those little gaps in your test coverage because the AI spots changes you might have missed. All of this gives you way more confidence that your assertions are actually meaningful. And really, it all boils down to spending less time fiddling with tests and more time building awesome features. And this just sums it up perfectly. The old, manual way is slow and it's full of guesswork. The new AI-powered way is instant, It's driven by the actual data of what changed in the DOM, and it is fantastic at catching those subtle but really important UI changes that are so easy for us to overlook.
Now, you might be wondering about usage limits. Well, they're actually really generous. Free Cypress Cloud accounts get 60 recommendations an hour. And if you're on a paid plan or just doing the free trial, you get up to 300 per hour. That is a lot of automated assertions. So I'll leave you with this thought. What if the most tedious part of writing tests, that whole guessing game of what to assert, was just gone? What could you build, and how much more confident would you be in your application if your tests practically started writing themselves? It's definitely something to think about.